Men du skal også, jeg skal ikke være der for længe,
Nej,
for du skal
det ved jeg godt. Nej, jeg skal
Go
også
on.
mit eget. Jeg tænker, du skal afsted efter 15 minutter, men jeg er altid så bange for det der Zoom, at så startede klassen først her 20 år, og så var der ikke noget tid tilbage. Ja. Nu kommer de, så det er fint.
Okay, men så gemmer jeg mig. Så tager jeg på mute.
Ja, god idé. Du kan jo godt høre mig. Yeah, that's super fine. Can I stay? Or should I go down? Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
Good afternoon there to first. We're going to start the masterclass 3.0, which will be presented for you, the one and only Sabine Hviid. We are so happy she's here because we know how tight schedule she has. And just running through her last 5 years, she made a contemporary drama about the special human experiment. It was another round. Who saw the another round? With Mads Mikkelsen. Okay, wonderful. He made an avant-garde minimalist experimental dystopia, is the penultimate. It was just, I guess, only distributed in Denmark. It wasn't an international release. It was only festivals, but it's a very, how can I say, hard experiment, but visually brilliant. The second World War movie, The Shadow in My Eye, a psycho thriller, The Speak No Evil. Who saw The Speak No Evil? Thank you very much. Last but not least, it was just finished a few minutes earlier, the historical costume drama, The Ugly Stepsister, which we try to describe is the snowflake meets with the substance type of film. So I know she's got a very short time, so I don't want to waste her time. So please have a big applause for Sabine Hviid.
Hello, hello. Hi. So, have all of you just been watching the film? Or how has every... Is there someone who hasn't watched the film? Maybe a better question. Okay. I think maybe that seems like almost a full, what I can see, a full room. I am going to talk about how we dealt with genre in this movie, which is, of course, a modern take on the fairy tale, the classic fairy tale Cinderella, but this time told from the ugly stepsisters side, and there's several versions, been several versions throughout the history, and the most known was the Disney, but before that there was a Grimm written story that was much more horror than the much more beautiful, pretty Disney version. And somehow Emilia got to come up with this genre, as she wanted to play more with the horror genre. She thought there must be this subgenre called beauty horror. And I actually invited Emilia here because since she's, I call her the inventor of this genre, I think she should say a couple of words about this. So I will just say welcome to the director, Emilie Blichfeldt of Ugly Stepsister.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Yes, very good to be with you tonight. So, and I'm very happy that you get to enjoy the fabulous Sabine, who's a mastermind of her own. So, Sabine invited me to talk a little bit about beauty horror. I don't know if you're aware of the genre body horror. It's a subgenre of horror that focuses on all the horrible things that can happen to the body. But also the horrible things that happen often carry meaning or metaphors. And when I rediscovered the Brothers Grimm's version of Cinderella and the horrible scene where one of the stepsisters cuts off her toes to try to fit the shoe, this for me was a perfect metaphor for what so many women do to try to fit the unattainable beauty ideal, you know, mutilate their bodies or go through hard pain. So I thought, you know, beauty horror could be like my kind of a subgenre of body horror. But not only that, within this there was also a visual theme that had to do with the horror and the beauty and how they coexist, and how, you know, we think, especially as women, that you should just present yourself as this beautiful object, but often you've done all of these horrible things to get there. And the more I was playing with this movie, the more I was finding these parallels between beauty and horror. So this was a concept that I brought to Sabine when we started working. And also, on top of that, I wanted to contrast Disney, that has this perfect superficial look, you know, it almost looks plasticky. But I wanted to create a world that was more grim, pun intended, and more real, you know, where the bodies felt real, and that you felt that the physical threats that was opposed to these bodies were real, and that also the universe felt realistic. So the task I gave Sabine, you know, is like, how can we build this real world, but without it feeling like that it's just a costume drama, because we still need to feel the fairy tale. So this is what I knew when I met Sabine, and then we started talking.
Yes. And then it was quick. We looked at a lot of films together. Emilie was very inspired by 70s film that has almost like a campy feel to them. And it was very important that it didn't turn quirky in a kind of a Tim Burton way, that it would be too cartoonish. It had to be tangible and real. We also looked at Picnic at Hanging Rock and Coppola's Marie Antoinette, and that was in terms of like the feminine vibe. And then I brought like all my favorite goth things, like Nosferatu by Werner Herzog, which has like, again, a realism in the makeup. All the skin is like pale. Isabella Adjani looks, like she looks like something out of a fairy tale, but in a much more real way and a horror-like way. And we talked about what's beautiful, everything we thought was beautiful, not in a Disney way, but for example, this beautiful bum that we thought was like just gorgeous. This picture was just like, we have to have that wonderful bum, female bum in our movie, but in a way we don't see it normally. And next to that, like elegant jewelry, flowers, shoes that are not of glass but real, of textile, and has all that kind of delicacy. And then we looked at Valerian Borovchik. Emilie showed me some mind-blowing sequences of, how should I say, it had a lot to do with like the subconscious, like hidden eroticism. More explicit in his world, but we implanted that. We wanted that hidden. There must be something in this Cinderella that has to do with, the thing that happens below the beautiful dresses. All those feeling of the young girls, both naive but also aspiring sexuality. So that was also like a thought of how to impose that in the visual world. And then I can't remember how it came about. I think I went to an exhibition and I bought a book for Emilie with these Natuurmoord images, paintings of Dutch old paintings. And they are just fabulous because they all contain this both death and life in the most exquisite way. So there was flowers next to a skull. I don't know if you see the skull here. And we had dinner parties, kitchen set, flowers. You saw the funeral scene. It was suddenly like, okay, there is a key here, because it's almost like, it is like, there's something gothic about these. There is some horror. Here's a snake hiding, but there's moths and butterflies flying around, and how can we translate this into the sets? And we had a kitchen. We knew we had to do a big kitchen, and that was very inspiring, how to fill that with all these goods and try to kind of reimagine these paintings. And suddenly Emilie was like, it could be interesting also to do an intro sequence that kind of also give the audience expectations of what will come in the story, and how to almost make a pact with them that this is not the Cinderella. You might see a pumpkin, but it might be a rotting pumpkin in the kitchen, and you might see mice, but it's going to be in a different way. And you might see beauty in a different way, and underneath this beauty there's horror. So we came up there with the idea to like build a long table that the camera could pan over, and then kind of slowly discover all these little detail that would be hero props and hero themes for the movie. And Emilie was so visual. It's just always so good to tie it in with like narrative, so it doesn't just become an image, but it was constantly, what does this part of the table tells us, in terms of when we meet Dr. Esthétique, and how do we almost find these characters in the setup, so it's not just like a pretty pan or interesting pan over items. So that was really fun. We built this. We spent a few days building this sculpture for the intro sequence, and now most of you just saw it. So I don't know if you want to see it again. Do you need to see it again? Yes. Okay. Good. Then I'll just find it here. And that was 55.
Papa. Papa. Papa.
Oh, light, sorry. But here you see the cake. Oh no. See cakes and surgical instruments and the invitation to the ballroom, the dead flowers, written by the pen. And here he is, poor actor, had to lie there for a whole day, looking very dead, in the cake. We had to put him up on high boxes. It was not very comfortable, but it looked good. And our silvery fish also from this painting, and the hairbrush with the dirty Elvira, deceased hair. And maggots, you can see live maggots here in the pasta. They're real. And they were jumping out of the food in this very fine museum. So we had to kill them during shoot on the floor so they didn't escape. And here we see this beautiful dress and her baby shoes, Cinderella's baby shoes, and a pumpkin. And the tapeworm. You can see the tapeworm also lying here, the one that comes out of her tummy. Here's a knife cutting off the feet and her beautiful jewelry in this pomegranate setup. Anyways, that was it felt like we had a key, and suddenly this key that was born. We talked about, okay, we'll make a dogma that every setup has to have this beauty and horror, right, Emilie? So it's like, yeah,
Yes.
the book can't just stay pretty. At some point, it has to have blood from the cut off toes, and the funeral setup with the dad, decaying dad, starts beautiful, and slowly these flowers die, and we had this kind of almost cobweb-like look, but which actually came from some silkworms, which I'm going to come back to. And here we have not a pretty floral bed, but a dead floral bed, and here we have a tight corset in an otherwise very beautiful setting. And here, of course, feet being cut off. And this we call the little kitchen of horrors. We built an aisle where she has to blindfold it. She's very hungry because of this tapeworm, food goes nowhere. She just needs to eat and getting more and more hungry. So we made this kitchen where she had to feel all this food of cakes and other desires, but walk down this aisle blindfolded. Almost this child game, for birthday parties, what do you think is under the black cloth type feel. So that was fun. And also at the parties, it was never just going to be pretty flowers or nice food. Underneath, suddenly this worm would start crawling in the meat. And inspired actually from, Dali has made a cookbook. So we looked very much to surrealism all the way. You brought Elsa Schiaparelli to the table first up.
Yes.
Maybe you can say that was regarding costumes, but she also totally works with this surreal world. And then I think I'm just gonna Yeah, so while I still have Emilia, and then I'm going to say goodbye to her, we wanted just to say that how it was just wonderful to find that kind of key, because then when we got the costume designer on board, we sat talking about what are we going to do with this mouse scene, from Disney, the classic mouse scene that, sewing the dress that everybody will expect. How are we going to go about that? And then suddenly we thought, we have this worm theme, but what's the beautiful worm? If it's, how does that look like? And then we thought of the silkworm, and how silkworm, of course, spins beautiful silk threads that could make a beautiful, magical dress for her. And then Emilia had it storyboarded, this sequence, and it was very complicated. We made clay dough mock-ups of silkworms and placed it in for our fantastic VFX wizard supervisor. And then he had to sit with real silkworms at the end. They lived in his assistant's house, and then they came to set, and I think it took him 2 days because they moved so slowly. So they had to speed up their movement, and then he put in the silk threads. But we dressed it with some threads, and that was just, again, this thing contrasting the maggots, that the father ended up having on his face, that we have the beauty and the horror. But maybe you want to say some final words here, Emilia.
Yeah, so since you're here at this great, production design, film art festival, I just want to say something about what it is to have a great production designer on board. Because when I was talking to the costume designer and Sabine about, how are we going to make this dress, because that was a meeting point between costume design and production design, I had the idea of maybe, the worms had something to do with it. But I was not very sure of myself and if it was a good idea. But because Sabine, especially, was so on board with my vision, with the concept for the whole film. And very early on, Sabine also talked about, we could feel this connection very early on, that we had a shared taste. When we got excited by the same things. And so when you have a force like Sabine, because she's a force, and she's on board and share your taste and understand your concept, it's amazing. Because in this conversation, she said, but come on, silkworms. And I was like, yeah, I thought of that, but I don't know. And she was like, yes, that's what we're doing. And suddenly the whole room was full of these silkworm stuff and how it could look and all of these things.
But I think actually it's a good example for the students, because one thing is that we can sit and go naughty excited about something, but there was a chapter in between where everybody, also from production, had to call Italy and Germany and silkworm farms, and they actually don't come out before May, and that's where we finish shooting. And and I was like, well, I read that they're soon going to be on the moon, and people were just like, oh my God, what have they started? And that is where you can meet some resistance somewhere. They were helpful though, that they did all the calls, but it was a bit of a Mad Hat idea, but it, yeah.
But then again, in such an ambitious film, where there's so many things for a poor first-time director like myself, all of these things, like calling Italy and almost the mafia and stuff to get the silkworm. And with Sabine, who had gone crazy for this idea. And this is an idea that, we get so much praise for from the audience all over the world, because it really shows the film and our twist on Cinderella and where the magic of Cinderella comes from, which is again based on Grimm, that Cinderella's magic comes from her heritage, from her parents, from the love from her parents, and that's where she gets the dress. In the Grimm it's the doves on her father's grave and the mother's grave, and now it's the silkworm, feasting on her mother's corpse, father's corpse, sorry. But so I think, this is the type of relationship or work that you can do together if you can share a concept and a taste. then it becomes so much fun. So with that said, I think you're in great hands with Sabine, and she will talk more about all the amazing work she did for almost no money. We really strained her a lot, but it's insane.
They gave all the money to the costumes.
Yes,
But they're also gorgeous and important. But thank you so much, Emilie. I didn't invite you for all the praise, but I did invite you because I think, as you said, it's super important with this aesthetic key. And it's not like you can challenge each other. You don't have to have exactly the same taste. But if you find that key, then you can just, then you really have something to grow your visual ideas from. And that is
absolutely. And then I think for me it was great to have that key and to give it to the people I worked with, and on basis of that I could let you run and do your thing and know that you came back with something that was within the same universe, that it really became cohesive, the whole film, from costumes to makeup to and
because I normally say the production designer role is, we are kind of midwives for the director's idea. I mean, it is always a birth. So it's important with that first time together, in your little atelier in Oslo. That was just super important time spent. You can't just jump in and execute something. You got to have that nurturing, fostering time.
Yes.
So
yes.
Thank you, Emilie. Then I will move on and show them the...
Bye.
So I thought you should maybe just see the little silkworm sequence, if you feel like it. Yeah. Let's see here. And... Whoa. Yeah, it's a little hard just to get it out, but you get it, I think. See, there's one walking there. Are they not cute? I think they're so incredibly cute.
Agnes. Agnes. Mama. Skolan ligger vid en fika.
see, I just need to turn off this thing here. Sorry. Maybe I can just hide it. Yeah. So so this that was like the first take. We also did have some pumpkins, but they were just hidden in the kitchen as like rotten old things. And then we did, of course, have a fairy tale part. We actually had quite a big fairy tale part to begin with, 3 major sequences. But due to budget, but also a realization what this project needed, they became smaller and smaller, because it was like just to showcase how kind of the naivety that comes from Disney, so that so many girls are imploded with. So it just needed to just give us that feeling of this young girl with very, very rose-colored eyes, and the way she thinks and hopes and dreams of this prince, maybe unknowingly, or this erotic feeling, but having no idea what this dumpy prince actually was. So all these sequences are very quickly punched by a needle, whether it's like the prince's real personality showing his face, or if it's like, blood coming out of her shoe in the end, in this beautiful riding sequence with a white horse, suddenly foot starts bleeding into the snow. So also these adventures could not just stand as like pretty things on their own. There was a lot of prop making, hero prop making for this movie, which was also really good when you had found this key. And as you heard Emilie said, she has a big agenda regarding what's kind of a female approach to all this beauty makeovers that we have today. Big advertisement on buses, getting new boobs and noses, and then we just found this well of Victorian already horror back then with these real nose clip machines that you can see her wearing in the film. I mean, it actually existed. It's in this box. I found this, I Googled, and it came up pretty quickly that this was actually a real thing you could buy. So we had it, this is still the reference, and for me it was always important that it was like nicely presented. Again, the beauty horror, if this is like a little horrific item, then it needed to have like pink ribbons tied to it, and that the doctor should not be a operation doctor in a straightforward way. He should be a beauty clinic doctor. And we found this ad we just thought was so funny. You have a beautiful face, but your nose? It was just, made us go quite, shocked that it has been happening for so long, this wish to change. And then since a prosthetic maker already had sculpted her face, because she had to be bigger and smaller and go through a lot of facial and body changes, we could we borrowed the face to kind of sculpt this thing from. We had first one that was like, we had several tests. It was either too big or the screws were too humongous, and it was always finding it's like key thing in her face. So for a lot of time in the movie, so it had to look absolutely right. But we ended here, and it's still a big thing in her face, but fun looking, I think. And then we had this Dr. Esthétique clinic, which is this place, and we could make brochures. He was like, for Emilie, for a long time, she was like, I said, what should we do with this Dr. Esthétique space? What should he be? And she was like, today we can't talk about Dr. Esthétique. It took a long time. It was like, she had to be ready to figure out who he was. But in the end, she was like, he has to be our comic relief. He has to be a place that is horrific, but also funny in a way, without completely being something else than the rest of the movie. And so when we had that, we started making brochures, and we found a lot of tools for his clinic, also inspired by Victorian times. But when you see they're very steely and very hard and very like operational, we wanted to make them more elegant looking, always like implode this ornamentation to it. We had eyelashes. The makeup girl made, as you can see, the eyelashes were sewn on. We were very inspired by Clockwork Orange and also Cronenberg. So we kind of looked at many shelves for this movie. And of course it couldn't be a small tool. It had to be a large tool. And I think maybe we will revisit the scene. But this was like, Emilie really wanted it to be something that, that the horror always had something almost 70s blood, that it is almost too much. It should not be like grim horror. It had to still have that kind of element of something, not magical, that sounds right, not a fairy tale, but something of it, where this is like really real and grim. The blood had to be, when the faces had to have that element of something, otherworldly somehow. In the space of the doctor's clinic, we decided to do a more abstracted kind of operation room, also inspired by Dead Ringers, Cronenberg's kind of red colors and his white suits. And it had like a beautiful, almost like Pantheon type ceiling. So I made this kind of round space that where she can kind of like in a closed circle that she gets operated in. And for the chair, I looked to like, again, the Victorian times, but I found this old dental kind of chair that we then had constructed with the beauty fabric and golden details. Let's see, I'll just find the sequence. 1944. Mm-hmm. Oh. 17. 44. Oh. At least a glimpse of the fairy tale sequence.
Att ta bort tandställningen är inget problem. Näsan däremot.
Vad vill du göra med den?
Tämja den. Sen vill jag även rekommendera våra exklusiva handsydda ögonfransförläggningar. Efter ett helt liv bakom den där knöllen förtjänar dina vackra ögon lite extra uppmärksamhet, tycker du inte? Ja.
Reguleringen av näsen håller i denne gang. Hvor snart kan vi få det gjort?
Du snakker litt her.
Etter badet kan jeg betale dobbelt.
Syster! Fint tag. Mästerverket, den stora förvandlingen. Har ni bestämt er?
Det blir nummer 7.
Förträffligt barn. Du? Du?
All right. That was Dr. Aesthetic. So this was actually what I had for now, because I can see we have 7 minutes left. So I didn't want to start a new chapter because maybe there were some questions, I thought. Maybe not.
Any questions from the crowd? Yes.
Something about the eye, the lashes fixing part. It was so amazing.
Yeah, that was, it took a really long time to do that surgical shooting. That was like a hollow face where where it could be that was enlarged, so we could sew them on that fake skin. But her eyes could Peter Hjort, who's a visual effects supervisor, he's amazing. He's Lars von Trier's wizard, has done everything Trier for years, and he has a very analog approach, and he wants to either sculpt things or make prosthetics, everything that can feel tangible. So he had all these parts built, so her eyes could actually be, that's why it looks so lively, they are like behind that fake skin, and therefore you can get that close, where it looks like it's sewn actually on her face. But it took a long time. It was almost like, it was part shoot one day and in a studio by itself a whole other day, almost like a lab, just doing these things. Yeah. No.
Hi. Can you talk a bit about the colors of the locations and the dresses and how it come together, and if there are any rules that you follow deciding on the colors?
Thank you. We both really like black. And together with the DOP, we really decided that things should be allowed to be super black, that spaces should almost vanish, that it could be just faces popping out. So there was that almost like a velvety black feeling to the spaces. But then everything around the girls, she wanted in pastel, that you had that innocence and pastels. In the beginning, we developed this for a long time. In the beginning, we had actually a whole summer part, which was very like Marie Antoinette with summer colors and, but as it proceeded, it turned it more into one contained area with more like an autumny feel start. So we had those red colors and then turning into winter and the fairy tale winter landscape. So we had the white as almost like where the dark is something that happens in their house, and in daily day the white was almost that dreamlike fairy tale part. Also together with the light pink, we kind of hued all the fantasies in the end to give them that almost like different feel of the daily day scenes. So we had so the pastel colors were allowed. It wasn't like there was a color that was not allowed, because all the dresses has a lot of colors in them. I think we have the whole spectrum, but not the primal, not harsh blue or very yellow, dark yellow, or So it's always the veined versions. And of course, blue was Cinderella, her dress that was allocated to her. Oh yeah, we have a yellow. That costume is very green and yellow. That was Elvira's costume. Actually, even the costume designer was like, "This is wild," but Emilia was like, "It has to be wild," you know. And we were like, "That green and that yellow, that's brave," you know. But it's just a really nice contrast to all the rest of these girls that almost becomes one group of yeah.
Next one. Then I'd like to ask you how you can get the inspiration. What did you do in your spare time, for example? You are visiting galleries, opening books, what type of books and how? Because for creating this kind of visible Chimborazo, I think it's challenging.
I think because we call this aesthetic taste union. You know, we both grew up with a version of first time we spoke, we didn't know each other. Emilia said, you know, I'm really inspired by this film called 3 Knots for Cinderella. It's a Czech film. And I was like, you know, it's shown a lot in Norway, but in Denmark it was very rare. But my friend's father had a 16mm copy. And he had a small cinema, so we got to see it. So this was my childhood, and it was Emilia's childhood. And we were like, this movie is so beautiful because it's real. It's the first Cinderella that is like has, you know, a real forest and it's gritty and in a different way. It's not horror like this, but it has a realness, and we loved it as kids. So that was a starting point in terms of fairy tale. And then the kind of more darker things. We watched a lot of films. Emilia has an attic, also with a big projection screen, and that was where she showed me this Borowczyk, which was wild, which is really, really beautiful. But it was kept being a huge inspiration. We kept looking at, let's see, maybe not this.
The sexual imagery.
Oops. I think I have it here. The film, but he was really, really great inspiration. Where is it? No, now I can't find it. It's hidden, I think. Let me see. No, you can explore him, but maybe you already know him. But he's very, very brave, and his images are like paintings. But he's also wild. You know, there will suddenly be a big floaty penis. So Emilia was like, I also want a big floaty penis. How are we going to do that? And looking at Peter Hjort, what do you mean by that? You know, it should be almost transparent, almost glowing, like 70s type feel, again with that humor. So then we could suddenly look at that kind of images for a long time in an art way. Like we had this couple for the fantasies. We looked at a lot of art books with Pierre Schill, which also has that kind of campy look, you know. So she really wanted to push boundaries with those kind of things. So a lot of arts books and trips to galleries and cinema evening in her attic. That was a main thing. And then we started traveling. We were going to shoot the film first in Romania. So we had actually scouted everything in Romania, and then it moved last minute. Something to do with the financing. Usual story. So, but we tried to hold on to the vision of what we found in Romania, and then bring it into the Polish possibilities. Yeah.
So always have to be walk with open eyes and ready to absorb new things.
But I think, like Imula said yesterday, I think that was very true. When you have that key time together and you find your key references, then you keep those cards in your hand, even though you have to change location or have less money. You keep saying, this is where I came from. How do I do it, even though I have less or I have to move a new place? Because you have the essence of what you want to find out there.
Okay, thank you.
I think I was, yeah.
Why are you so shy, everybody? Everybody's expecting this masterclass. I thought there is a tons of questions.
That is one.
So basically it connected to the previous question, and I just saw the movie, and don't you feel that with so low light conditions, part of your decoration and the design is lost in a way somehow, because yeah, you see in a cinemas, you see not black but grays, dark grays, and somehow these low conditions, I know where is light, like faces, you see it really well, but the design and the environment is somehow lost, at least for me.
I know that I have, with some projects, I've had that feeling like, oh, now they graded it all dark and I can't see any detail left. But I think Emilie still keeps the detail so well. And we loved that darkness from the beginning. We wanted it almost to be floaty faces, and we spent a long time. We wanted to have had real candles, but a lot of the locations it was forbidden. So the DOP got these systems built in France, so we could have something that looked more like a gas light or oil lamp. And that, of course, also was to enhance a face, but not all the rest. But it's a taste thing. I like it because it seems like these old medieval paintings almost, like Rembrandt or something. But yeah, I think she's good at doing close-up of whether it's a jewelry or piece of food, or, you know, so it still lives.
Hello, I would like to ask you, because I've seen in your writing that you wrote, what back do you set up with the audience? And
Yeah.
I'm curious about how do you imagine your audience, what they will see, and what do you expect them to look out for, or what is your relationship, or how do you imagine them? Because I do think that it is important. So I'm curious about your view on that.
It was a big talk, because it's like Cinderella is normally for kids. And now we have something that goes so horrific. So what would be the age level? Who would be able to go and see it? And that was, you know, so there was tonally, she never wanted to go somewhere gore, where you lose, you know, horror gore, where you lose everybody. It had to, she hoped to still be allowed to get the teenagers to the cinema, age-wise, but of course not the small ones. It was made for an adult audience, and I think, and they tested it a lot, but it was constant, like, it has to be beautiful. It can't just be dark and grim. It has to have that. You have to want to see it. She actually loves audience, this director. She really wants her film to be seen. She's all about, you know, will they come and see it? I don't want to make a film for no one, she says. I want it to go out there and be seen. So she's very conscious to kind of make it edible without losing a vision. Yeah. But I don't know how many, I don't know with the teenagers, of course. My daughter and her friends have seen it and think it's fun, but I don't know if they actually went, or if, I think it was a little older audience, more like 20s and up.
Thank you very much. I guess our time is gone, but those students who will participate in the work part of the masterclass and the workshop, it has to go to the next cinema room, and then you can continue the workshop together, as I know, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Thank you.
So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Please give a big applause to Sabine Hviid. Thank you very much.